Now
has been in Congress for about 10 years now. Unfortunately, he just lost the primary with Jim Justice for the U.S. Senate race in West Virginia. So he is out. He is no longer going to be in Congress after the end of this year. We have other allies that hopefully will pick up the mantle on these bills. But Congressman Mooney has been really a leader since Ron Paul left Congress as promoting these sound money type bills. Specifically, he has the Monetary Metals Tax Neutrality Act, which is the bill that would remove the federal income tax from gold and silver. You know, not just the fact there is a capital gains tax, but that higher rate, which is totally ridiculous. So that bill addresses that. There's several co-sponsors of it, has not received a hearing or a vote. He also has the Gold Reserves Transparency Act, and that is a bill that would audit the gold. It's basically the audit the gold bill. And, you know, people in the community know that there has not been credible audits of the U.S. gold reserves for many decades. And, you know, there have been audits of the audits and audits of the seals and stuff, but actually an assay and inventory and so forth, that hasn't been done for a very long time. And just as fundamentally, this bill not just requires that process every 5 years, but it also takes a look at and requires an audit maybe when you're the U.S. government, you can say, well, maybe you thought you owned it, but we own it now. So, I mean, maybe that's the fallback is like, oh, yeah, this has been pledged, but OK, sorry, we're breaking that promise. I mean, we broke the Bretton Woods Treaty, so why wouldn't we, so that's been interesting. And this bill would require a full accounting of any encumbrances placed against America's gold. Very recently, he's leveraged his office to reach out to the U.S. Treasury and the Fed about some other interesting questions. And frankly, that's one of the things congressmen and women can do without legislation, without hearings, without votes. They can ask questions, and they often get very interesting answers or non-answers, as the case may be. One of the things most recently that he did was he reached out to the Federal Reserve and said, we understand that there are countries that have been repatriating. We've heard through Europe and elsewhere that there's evidence that the United States could be a potential adversary financially if they get crossways with the United States. And so they're rethinking, do we want all of our gold or much of our gold to be in the clutches of the New York Fed? Do we want to have all of our money in U.S. Treasuries? So we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot. And there's clearly been major increase in central bank gold buying over the last 2 or 3 years in reaction to recent actions. And in addition to that, there's been evidence that some countries are seeking their gold to be repatriated from New York back to their countries. You may recall 10 years ago, the Bundesbank requested some of their gold back, and they were told, okay, sure, you'll get it over the next 7 years. And everybody and they ultimately got it in 3. But the question is, if this is gold that's sitting there at the New York Fed in a segregated container, that is their gold, that has not been pledged or leased, why isn't that being returned immediately if somebody wants it? I know that when somebody has gold in my depository, it's sitting on a shelf, it's in a container, it's theirs, they can have it immediately, they can pick it up, we'll ship it out to them. Why would it take 3 to 7 years for the Federal Reserve to return Germany's gold to Germany? And so, we've been asking, and Congressman Mooney has been asking, how many people are doing this right? How many countries are doing this? And of course, the answer is you need to talk to the New York Fed. The New York Fed says you need to talk to the Federal Reserve, Open Market Committee. And they're all pointing fingers at each other. Nobody wants to give the answer. And so that's ongoing. There's FOIA requests. There might even be a lawsuit now. But these are the kinds of things that Congressman Mooney has been interested in. He also has a gold reserves bill. And he also has a bill that has some other support that was to prevent the Federal Reserve from being involved in a pilot program for a central bank digital currency. And so that's another thing that he's been interested in, among others. So he's been a real champion for us on the sound money front. And I know there's others that are out there, and hopefully others that will pick up where he left off when he leaves Congress. But again, the thing about these bills, they're sitting there, they're well written in a crisis or a dynamic changes. They're there. Hopefully, they move forward in a scenario. But states, on the other hand, don't have to sit idly by waiting for Congress to address some of these issues. They don't have to be purely a victim of federal policy. And so that's really been the focus for us is the state level, because that's where we've had so much more ability to succeed and actual success.
Well, that leads me to the next question, and it's about bail-ins. I mean, there's an adage that I learned from the late, great Jim Dines. Once the ship has sunk, everyone knows how it might have been saved. I use that analogy or metaphor for a bail-in. You've been warned that the deposit that you have in your bank and you think is your money is actually legally you're an unsecured creditor and it's the bank's money. Right. And then there's a question of, well, does the FDIC insure you to $250,000, so you only have to worry an amount above that level? But when you get to the nitty-gritty, there's so little money in the FDIC that maybe even that $250,000 is at risk. So my point is, how do we implement the idea that, you if you have all of your assets in the fiat system, be it a bond, be it a stock, be it private equity, be it real estate, everything is based on the printing press, and you have
Informed financial decisions only on Now Media television networks.